Welcome in, everybody, to this edition of Girl, How'd You Get That Gig? For my partner, Celeste Gehring. I'm Amy G. And women's sports, if you haven't heard, it's kind of exploding and growing right alongside it. Women-owned sports bars showcasing, women's sports. Go figure. We are so excited to be witness to this and help promote this completely game-changing business venture. And welcome in Jen Barnes, who's the founder and CEO of Rough and Tumble Pub in Seattle. And not only is Jen the founder of Seattle's first women's sports bar, but her story of how it started is so inspiring. And basically, it's what we live for on this podcast. So please welcome in with a circle clap, Jen Barnes. Woo! Jen, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you both.
We are so excited to hear about how all of this got started. And I think that's where we start. So how did an idea or a discussion that you had, and what was that, become a reality to have Rough and Tumble Pub?
Yeah, it was genuinely a light bulb moment. You know, it's so rare to actually experience one of them. And it really was, it was one of those things where it hit and I knew instantly. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is the thing. So we have 5 women's professional teams here in Seattle. We are, like, I always say, we're the best women's sports team in the world. Yeah. But our NWSL team, Seattle Reign, we're in the semifinals. So they were going in or not making it. And it was a weekend, I think in like October or something of 2021. And, you know, I love watching sports, whether it's, you know, the Mariners or the Seahawks or the Olympics or, you know, rain or storm. But I really love watching a game with other people. So other fans, having a beer, you know, there's such a different experience that you have when you're cheering with other people who are also cheering. Mm-hmm. It's visceral, it's emotional, and it builds. I mean, that's why we go to arenas, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we go to stadiums and watch games with other people. It'd be pretty boring if you were the only one in the stands. Right? And so I really wanted to watch this game with other people. And I just was like, well, surely this one will be on TV, because at the time, nobody ever played women's sports. But I thought, well, this is such a big deal. We're at home. I mean, this is our home team. We had Megan Rapinoe and Rose Lavelle, who had just won the World Cup, on our team. And it genuinely didn't occur to me that it wouldn't be. And so my partner was like, you really should maybe call around before we just go somewhere and assume that's on. And so I started calling around and, you know, got everything from like, no, to who is that, to I just like increasingly got more and more irate about
Are you crazy? Why?
I just was like irate that the gender inequity was so clearly on display. Mm-hmm. And, you know, gender equity is something that I've focused on throughout my entire career, regardless of where I worked and what my role was. And so I was just like, I can't believe this is happening today. Like, we're in 2021. How? And my partner was like, well, why don't you do something about it? I was like, well, what? He was like, well, why don't you open a place and play women's sports? And I was like, oh. And so he gets the credit for this. My partner is amazing. It was his idea to at least do something about it. And then I ran with it from there. And within a couple of days, I mean, it was really weeks, I had, you know, filed with the Secretary of State, started my LLC, and then tried to talk myself out of it, because who would go into the restaurant business coming out of COVID? Was
right.
And really, like, you know, restaurant business was decimated. And here I was wanting to start something in women's sports, which it was, you know, also
you had 2 strikes against you.
Yeah, it was very untested. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was really important and that it would be popular and revenue producing. And so I talked myself back into it. And here we are.
We're so glad you did.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I love this story because as women, right? We need it. We just build it. Just get it done.
Yeah, we do.
We'll build it.
Yeah, we'll build it.
So how long did did it take you from that light bulb moment you were talking about? I know you said you filed for the LLC and you got things going within weeks, but then how long was it before you actually opened the doors of the pub?
Yeah. So by the time so then I, again, tried to talk myself out of it, right? And so it was about 3 or 4 months later. So it was February-ish of 2022 when I was like, I was on the freeway and I called my partner and I said, that's it. I'd had one last really not fun interview to be a chief people officer or something like that. And I just realized like I was exhausted from trying to affect gender equality and equity change within companies where I wasn't the decision maker at the top and where it wasn't actually the priority. And so I left this interview and I was just like, I have to do something more. And I, especially I think when we're all coming out of COVID, we really rethought, we might be dead in a couple of weeks. And so what are we doing with our lives and how do we make sure that we're living them to their fullest was a conversation that so many of us were having. And I just pulled off the freeway and I called my partner. I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going for it. And
love him, by the way. And like,
yeah, a rare human.
We always like to shout out good guys on our show too.
100%.
Yes.
100%. And so that was it. So that was roughly February, March-ish of 2022. And I opened December of that same year.
Wow. What a crazy year.
Yeah, it's, in the restaurant world from sort of idea to execution and opening the doors, it's usually about 18 months. So this was hyper
fast.
This was on hyper warp speed. But I also knew data was starting to come, a lot of data was starting to hit the waves, if you will, on women's sports in particular. And I could see, it was very, very clear that it was not just taking off, but like, it was on a hockey stick kind of moment. So
it almost seemed like there was a craving for it happening very alongside much. The launch of women's sports becoming so popular. Yeah. I think it's so interesting what you're saying about working kind of in, for a company or an organization. And when you're in a space that's not giving you what you need, so many of us are afraid to leave that and create the space ourselves that we need. So kudos to you for having that, that sense that it needed to be done, and then the bravery to get it done. Cause it's scary when you go out on a limb like that and try something, even with all the analytics that you had supporting it, that it would give you revenue. You never know how much or how long, right?
Yeah.
But with that, so here you go, you open in December. And so I have always wanted to own a bar. I've always wanted to own a bar. And then I talk to people who are like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Like, it's so much more work than I think. Like, I could be back there pouring drinks and just chatting with people. So
that's really fun.
That seems really fun to me. I guess I should maybe just be a bartender and not own the bar, because that business side will get me. But what does a day in the life of a sports bar owner look like for you? Like, from getting up to going to bed, what are your responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting question. I don't know that I can speak to all bartender bar owners. Yeah. And I think in great part because Rough and Tumble we were the first place in the world to prioritize playing women's sports and gender equity in sports viewing. Like this idea, nobody had ever done something like this before. So I had no blueprint. I had no architecture to go off of. I had no proof of concept. So I went into this, with this gut instinct and this great idea, right? And a lot of business acumen. I mean, I'd spent my career in business. And so I don't recommend doing this without that, frankly. I mean, that's a lot of people are like, I want to do that. And I'm like, okay, you really actually need to understand how to run a business. Absent that, there's a lot of passion, which is great, but the restaurant and margins are very thin. Labor is really high. It's about, it's just all the things you hear about. But I think, my experience as the owner and founder of Rough and Tumble is probably different than some other people's, because Rough and Tumble is a very central figure in the women's sports industry sector. So what I do from like a business, day-to-day business standpoint is really like things that I'm thinking about on a day-to-day basis are national, international, local, hyper local. And so there's a lot of different markets and demographics and stuff like that. So the way in which the business is run is really run more like a national brand than it is just and I don't mean just, but a local institution, right? And so that really shifts what I do on a day-to-day basis. So genuinely on a day-to-day basis, I'm primarily running the company as a CEO. And the restaurant now that we're a little over 2.5 years in is, an incredible team. Just I have the best team of people. A lot of them have been there since day one. So a lot of that is running really smoothly on its own. That was not always the case. The first few months, nobody had ever done this before. And so even though I had a really good instinct about what was going to happen, there's human beings involved on both sides of the equation, whether they're customers or employees or whatever. And so it was really fun and energizing, if not exhausting, to figure out what that is. And a lot of that has shifted dramatically, quarter by quarter, just simply as women's sports industry has grown. When I opened in December of 2022, only 4% of all sports media was dedicated to women's sports. So 96% was men's sports, which if my goal and
that sounds about right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so my goal and contribution here was let's show women's and men's sports equally. Well, that takes a lot more work when you don't even have the content. So,
and like you're battling,
shifted.
You're battling, age old equity issues. I mean, women aren't, you're getting paid what men are getting paid, even outside of the sports world, we're still short. What are we? 83 cents on the dollar, something like that. So, to get like equal coverage, I mean, you bit off a big piece. I love that you did that. That's a big thing to bite off.
Big thing to do. Yeah. And I mean, just in 2.5 years, we've gone from, 4% to 16%. And by the end of this year, projections are going to be about 20%. So that is a dramatic shift in a very short period of time. But that's the kind of thing that like I can look back because now, we're on our 3rd season of WNBA. And I can see this is the first season that the WNBA, all games have been shown. This is the first season. Yeah. And so just creating those access points for viewership is great for everybody, but it's shifted obviously like what I can turn on. So
where Celeste over here is just she was a collegiate basketball player at LSU, so she's like way too late, awesome. Way too late. Yeah, but it's here. It's here.
Yeah, it's finally here though.
Yeah.
So Jen, I've been looking online at all the pictures of your pub and everything like that, and it looks amazing. But can you paint a picture for our audience of what game day is like in there and just explain, I just want to hear all the goods.
It is honestly electric. It's and it's so funny now because I'm so used to the environment of watching a game at Rough and Tumble that when I'm traveling or whatever and I go watch a game somewhere else, I'm like, oh my gosh, the rest of the world doesn't yet know, this is it's so great. So a lot of people, kind of ask about demographics and, there's common misperception is that we only play women's sports and that only women are allowed in there, or only women come in, which is just the furthest thing from the truth.
That would be a bad business plan.
It would be a not great business plan. Yeah. I think exclusion at any point is not a good business plan, right?
Agreed.
And so, not to say that there aren't places for everybody. I just think that from just a purely monetary standpoint and a revenue production standpoint, showing all the sports is a great move. So, you walk, I think, what do you think of when you think sports bar? Like what does a space look like to you in your brain?
TVs like across the bar, for viewing. Yeah. A little, I mean, I'm going to go like super, it looks masculine. Usually it looks masculine to me.
Right. Dark.
That's what I'll say. Dark,
maybe low ceilings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is the opposite of that.
I would guess. I knew it.
So this is a beautiful old building. Just for scope, it's large. So we seat 165 and capacity is 255 people. And so that's large. It's a large space. I think kind of the average sports bar that you go to in your neighborhood or whatever is usually 40 to 50, 60 people. It's quite, so it's just space wise, it's different. It's a really beautiful old historic building. It was formerly a sawmill. So it's got these like 30-foot high ceilings and expansive windows and hardwood floors that are original to the building. And the touches, it's not overtly feminine per se. It's just, I think, thoughtful and
manicured.
Yeah. Maybe you just got you just got a little manicure. You took care of yourself. It's healthy feeling. And but there's 18 TVs. Every single one is placed in such a way that there's no place in the entire restaurant that you can sit and not see multiple screens. So you can watch multiple games. We have 2 sound zones. And yes, there's an enormous 125-inch screen over the TV, which is actually, I love this part. It's daisy chained 4 of them. So during March Madness, you can have 4 basketball games on at the same time. But yeah, it's beautiful. And, just other things like lots of thoughtful little touches that I think are just make something feel more comfortable. My goal was to create somebody's third place. So, if you're not at home and you're not at work, where do you want to be? It's this third place, right? It's your other living room. The food is fantastic. Like, that's another thing. Just going to a sports bar, I was always like, an overly drenched Caesar salad was the only vegetable I could get.
Yeah, they're not known for their food usually.
Our food stands on its own. It's so good. So
excited about our trip up there, Celeste.
Jen
doesn't know it yet. Jen doesn't know that we're plotting on a trip right now. We're like, well.
Then you could do a live recording at Rough and Tumble.
That's what we need to do. That would be so fun. Okay. Okay, so we know you already told us that you weren't always a sports bar owner and founder. What was life like prior to this life-changing light bulb moment? And also like go back. Like, where'd you grow up? Were you always a sports
You want the full
fan?
story?
A little bit of the full story, like a quick version of it. Yeah.
Quick version.
Where are you from? Were you an athlete? Always a sports fan? And what was your career like prior to making this change?
Okay, I'll do the short version with the punchy points. So I'm actually born and raised here in Seattle. I am the product of, I'm the 4th generation of a super brave matrilineal line of women who just had like enough gumption and grit to do incredible things along the way. So I think I just grew up knowing that was possible. So I feel very lucky about that. I don't think we always get that. Born and raised in Seattle. I've moved away a few times, come back. It's too beautiful here, and the community is just so great. So I do love it. When I was 6, my parents owned a business that was in the food industry. They were on the production side. So I grew up around restaurants and groceries and, stuff like that, because we were making deliveries. And so it was an area that felt really comfortable to me and that kind of thing. But when I was 6, I just loved to work. Like I genuinely did. And I pitched to my parents, can I please work in your business? And I had this whole proposal. It's so emblazoned in my brain, this moment when I pitched them. And they said yes. And then that wasn't enough. So I asked if I could start my own business. And I had this whole business plan I put together. And it was to start growing chives, like what you put on your potatoes.
Yes.
So my dad helps me. We built all these garden beds. And it was like, I sold chives for like $3 a bunch back in a time that I don't need to name, to like groceries and restaurants and stuff. Which, I mean, can you imagine this little pigtailed redheaded kid selling you chives? Can you say no? No, you can't.
I was just thinking most kids at that age are doing a lemonade stand, and here you are, like, I'm gonna grow crops and sell
receipt books. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Celeste, maybe your family got in touch with Jen. Celeste is potato farmer.
Oh, there you go. There we go. We'll just do the Celeste and Jen potato chip.
Let's go.
We actually have really famous potato chips that we make ourselves at work. They're kettle chips with a chive sour cream that are just, oh my God, they're so good. So we'll just have to name them after you. So that was really just,
And
I
how old were you
loved
when you had your own chai business?
six.
Oh, gosh.
And then I loved working in my parents' business. By the time I was about 9, I was actually kind of running payroll and doing books and stuff like that for the company, which I don't know who does that, but I did. And so my career is so much longer than my age actually is, because usually by the time you're doing that stuff, you're in your 20s or mid to late 20s. And then I did the classic 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old thing, and I started working as like a receptionist or a host at a restaurant, and then became a server, and then a GM, and then I left and went to college, and all of those things. And I was left knowing that I loved working with people, but that I really wanted to run companies. So I went to design school and ended up running law firms for a long time. That was a significant portion of my career. I've done everything but be the lawyer kind of roles. So CEO, COO kind of roles. And then moved out of legal and into the startup world. I really wanted to get out of, because you can get really restricted within one particular industry sector, and I wanted to do something else. So then I went into the startup world and helped build a solar company that was taking off. We were the first company to figure out how to essentially create electricity from solar that wasn't attached to the roof.
Wow.
And so that was a lot of fun. I did that for about 6 years, and then COVID hit. And I took some time and hung out at our cabin and decided I wanted to do something else when all of this came up. But as an athlete, I think really my primary sport was rowing. So I was a rower. I started rowing when I was in 6th grade. We have a really great program here in Seattle. And because it's such a temperate climate, you're kind of rowing year round. So that was truly my sport. That was because we were year round. I don't know how to do anything else. Like, don't ask me to throw a ball or kick one either. So, throw, yeah. So,
okay. And
that was the very short version.
Yeah. Well, where did you go to college, and what did you major in? You said design.
So I actually left high school early and went to college here, and then transferred to Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. I was there for a little while, and then I ended up wanting to really focus on design, and I loved historical renovations. And so I got into a design school down in San Diego, and went there, and did not end up in that area of my career, but I use this same things all the time. So like when you walk into Rough and Tumble, I designed it.
I was just gonna say, it feels like all these different things you did were for this moment.
Yes.
Like all of these things that you
it's really
went
random,
into this. It's crazy cool. So then on top of this, on top of the bar and all these things that you've done, you own Salmon Bay FC.
I'm one of the owners. Yeah.
One of the owners of Salmon Bay FC, which is a pre-professional soccer team in Seattle as well. And as an owner of a women's sports team, we're really curious. How did that come about to decide to own part of a team? And then maybe I should just stop there. We'll stop there and I'll ask the next one after, because it's too much. I tend to do that. I ask like 4
I do
questions.
too.
Yeah. And then I'm like, and then they're like, what was the third thing you asked of the 10? Yeah. So what led to you deciding to become one of the owners of this team?
Well, so I think it was like a month after I opened, the president of Ballard FC, which was the first sort of semi-pro pre-professional men's team in Seattle. So on the soccer side of things, there's NWSL and MLS, women's and men's, but then there's a whole development structure that gets a kid from little kickers all the way up into college, and then hopefully pro if that's what they want to do. And pre-professional is part of that. And the United States is still building that entire development pyramid. It's very well structured over in England and across Europe. We're catching up. But having those opportunities outside of just college are really important. So USL and USLW are truly built to kind of fill that void. And so for almost all of the teams that are the sections of the league, they really utilize students, collegiate level students, and the season is really run from like May to August. And so it's outside of the college sphere, but pulling in from, and we also had previous pro players and stuff like that too. So it's a broad range, but that's kind of the focus.
Are they being scouted? Is it like a collegiate? Yeah. So we have the same thing in baseball. I mean, that's all like program here, but we have collegiate summer leagues where like Cape Cod, and now we have them out here, and
it's the same thing exactly. And so Ballard FC had started 2 years before, and it was coming off of a national championship win. So in 2 years, new team to Seattle, went straight through and won the national championship. And so with Seattle being as huge of a women's sports city as it was, they were like, we also want to open a women's team. And so they came to me like about a month after I opened and sat down and said, totally confidential, we're doing this, we want you to be involved. And I was like, sort of no brainer. Because as although Rough and Tumble, it's brick and mortar space is about bringing people together for game watching and fandom, there's so much more that needs to be done to actually build out the women's sports opportunities and create opportunities for players that like literally didn't exist in Seattle until this past year, right? We didn't have a place for young women to play outside of college. And so that was really exciting for me. And then one of the more like really enjoyable parts is that I've been able to do. So we did a raise with a couple of three different ownership investor groups, one of which includes the first group of active NWSL players who are investing in this. And so there's several Reign players, a Thorns player who was on Gotham at the time, formerly Reign, and a former just retired Seattle Sounders player too. So that's been really fun because these are, the sort of the leadership in this group is coming from people who are actively playing now and know what it's like to not have those experiences and opportunities. And so like their vision is helping drive forward the team in a way that I think is unique and a lot of fun.
So the follow up to this was, and you may have kind of already tackled it a little bit, but we could probably go a little more in depth, is just now in this position of team owner, right? Yeah. Where are you seeing the most growth in women's sports and the least growth?
Like across the whole.
Yeah, well, because even what you're saying specific to Seattle, that you didn't have facilities for women to play, post college or teams that they could go to, and now you do. Like, it's really up to you. Because what you're seeing locally, but because you market your pub nationally, I'd love to get your take on just what you're thinking. Where you're seeing things go and where you think things need a lot of help.
I mean, I would say I'll start with the areas of opportunity. And I think one of the biggest ones is more women coaches. Title IX, while it created more opportunities for athletes, it really hindered women in positions of coaching opportunity. And so, 1 in 4 coaches are women, whether it's for women's teams or men's teams. And that's completely not acceptable. We have to change that. At a bare minimum, women need to be in equal positions of leadership and should be, and there's no reason why not. But there is something to be said for young women knowing that they can coach by seeing other women who are coaching.
100%.
You don't know you can do it if you haven't seen it.
You can't see it.
Yeah. And so that's an area that is beginning to shift. I think we still have a long way to go on that, but referees, coaches, trainers, any of the people who are part of the operations side, the coaching side, and certainly front office, that is starting to change. We saw Jen, becoming the first, ref for the MLB this year. That kind of, things are changing.
It's funny you brought her up. I was thinking about Jen becoming the first female umpire at Major League Baseball level, and I have never seen an umpire have their stats blasted as much as Jen's.
Yeah.
It's like Jen, I'm blanking on her last name. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. But she's like had a 66% correct strike call record in
Yeah.
last night's game. I'm not seeing that on any of the male umpires ever. So
Yeah.
that's the hard part, is once they are in that position,
The
then
critique is
they're
intense.
they're under the biggest spotlight. I had the honor and opportunity to work with Alyssa Nacken, who was the first female uh, coach in Major League Baseball. It was with San Francisco Giants, and I actually
Yeah.
conducted her very first interview, and she's in the Hall of Fame.
So cool. Yeah.
And yeah, and like she is an unbelievably strong human being, like almost off the charts. And that's what it takes, because the
Yeah.
criticism that she was under, it was insane
It's
what
the
people were
ability.
saying.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have blamed her if she walked away. I would never
Yeah.
have, because it's just too much, especially with social media now. But anyway,
Yeah.
I
Well, you look at
completely
Kim
agree.
Ng, right? Like Kim
Yeah,
Ng,
Kim
and
got,
she,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, same thing. So now she's the commissioner for
Softball.
for softball. They did a tour through Seattle this year, and we work pretty closely with Athletes Unlimited, and we're relatively involved in them coming to Seattle. It was a lot of fun. I've like admired Kim for so long.
She's great.
Yeah. So, I think to me, that's one of the least commonly addressed conversations. It's not that things aren't moving there, they're just not moving as quickly as other areas. And realistically, whenever you're growing something, you have to grow something that's getting the most attention. What's going to get the most attention? The games. Who's doing that is the athletes. And so, it all comes, it's all
Sure.
part of a chicken and egg situation.
Yes.
But
Yes.
those are areas of opportunity for sure. It's all getting better, but areas that are doing really well. I mean, the NWSL is the best soccer league in the world, women's soccer league in the world.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. And we're being given a run for our money now, because money is being dumped into European leagues and all around the world, and sometimes more and more over there instead of here, right? And so we have to make sure we're keeping up with the Joneses and making sure that we're taking care of, should we be handling salary caps differently? And so, it's just like interesting to watch all of that. But I think that the things that are really trending in the right direction are what media is doing to play more games. So when I talk about 4% of women sports media time dedicated to women, and just 2.5 years ago, and by the end of this year it being around 20, that's a very quick shift in the right direction. And that's because of places like Rough and Tumble that are playing the game so that people are watching, so they fall in love with the sport and the player, and then they come back and then they buy tickets and they become season ticket holders, and then then they follow the athlete, and then as we all know, women's sports fans follow the athletes way more diligently and have a passionate fan base that is completely different than men's sports. I think it's like 63% of people who are a women's sports fan are likely to buy the thing that their favorite athlete is putting their name behind. And so,
and like with you being the first women's sports bar, is there pressure in that then too? Because like you're talking about, it's like you're really helping, kind of get them on that path and like supporting women so much. Does it feel like a lot of pressure to you ever?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has always felt like a huge mantle. For all, I mean, if I fail, everybody's going to know about it.
That's the scary part. Yeah.
And it's not going to be so much of me failing. It would be a systemic issue, right? It's a system issue, but it would impact women's sports and the ecosystem of women's sports in a way that would be noticed. You could, a bar in the Bronx could die and it wouldn't affect the Yankees or whatever, right? Like that kind of storyline. But, Rough and Tumble fails and it would it would have a bigger ripple. And not that it's going to fail, but I mean, that's a lot more pressure. And I think.
Honestly, I'm just going to interject here and give you my opinion. I know you didn't ask for it. There's zero chance you can fail, Jen. Like, and I don't mean that the bar might not close someday, financials, whatever. But you have already won. So there's no failing here. Like,
good point.
The first,
I'll reword that.
People are following your lead. You gave people a template. You're a trailblazer. You won. Like, there is no failure in any of what you're doing here. It's all positive and just pushing the needle forward.
Yeah,
so
it's so
thank
true.
you. I mean,
thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool. This it's really incredible to see all the women who are starting up bars in the last year alone. I mean, by the end of this year, there's estimated to be as many as a couple dozen around the United States, and that's incredible. Yeah.
So Celeste and I told you a little bit about ourselves prior to hitting the record button. We've been friends for a long time and kind of been in the trenches together in this male-dominated world of sports. And we're, these two really tall ladies that became friends. That's our biggest thing. We're really tall.
You're like, oh, hi, I can see you over everyone else.
That we always say, the twin towers over here. And I mean, it's, our passion for sports and having been athletes ourselves. I played college volleyball. She played college basketball. The interest we started seeing from young girls asking us about what we were doing in our job, how do we get it, all this, it's what led to starting the podcast, all of that. And what we see is this years and years and years of investing ourselves into women's sports are great. I don't understand what your problem is, right? And really not seeing much of a change until recently. And it's it's just, like I mentioned in the intro, it's just exploded. And I think it's because people figured out they could make money off of it. And that's fine, because while they're making money off of it, they're realizing there's a fantastic product at the base that serves women and young teen girls and young girls in so many ways, right? The statistics of women who graduate from high school, graduate from college, have C-suite positions, often played sports. What are 94%, your thoughts? Yes.
94% of women CEOs were athletes, in college,
So we got to know what we think about it, but what are your thoughts on why people are finally connecting with women's sports?
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of reasons. The primary reasons why women's sports have really started to explode are actually due to COVID. So during COVID, what were we doing? We were at home. We weren't going out. We weren't going to restaurants or whatever, right? Going to the movie theater. We were at home, and what did we do? We subscribed to every streaming application we could, and we watched all the content. We were watching stuff that you would normally want to watch, because that's all we could do. At the time, that was really where 99%, essentially, like the majority of women's sports, were on multiple streaming applications, which they still are. However, that was really one of the only ways to watch them at the time.
Right.
And so we're sitting there, this is coming off of Women's World Cup, where we, U.S. women's national team won in France. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about women's soccer. So that was great. And we started watching soccer, and we would start watching other things. And then the wobble happens, which is when the W had their enclosed games in Florida, I think it was. And it was, at the time, it was the only live sport that was being broadcast. It was the only live sport. And so everybody was like digesting all of this, like real content that was happening. So those two things started a chain of effects where people were watching women's sports that had never watched it before, and or were watching more of it. And all of a sudden, media companies were like, whoa, this is spiking. These numbers are going up. People are watching this content. And then everybody started asking for more. And so that really started to, people started falling in love with players, and like you do, you find something that you follow, or you're, amazed by, right? Inspired by. And so that really started to shift a lot of stuff. And as we were coming out of COVID, the conversation around women athletes and women's sports was just starting to really fill up the airwaves. There was a lot more content that was continuing to grow on kind of digital platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Linear cable didn't start seeing as much until, more like 2022, but it was because that we were proving that the content was being digested online. And so that was really the major shift. With all of that, if people are watching it, then you have advertising opportunities, sponsors get involved, then you've got an increased moneymaker. All of a sudden, we were all able to go back and watch games in person again. And so then ticket sales changed. And all around the same time, the NWSL had their CBA came up for renewal and got renegotiated. And instead of women's soccer athletes in the United States, playing on high school fields and having changing rooms in, essentially like converted containers and ice baths in garbage cans. Like literally that's what was happening. They had, they were playing on real fields and had real medical care and had real leave and transportation and all these things that were really helpful. But that put them in better stadiums that we all wanted to actually go and sit in or could get access to. So all of these things combined really shifted how we looked at and were absorbing and digesting women's sports. Those things collectively, come together to create a much bigger whole.
And there's such a sisterhood in women's sports. And,
Totally.
Amy and I talk about this all the time. We have our little text chains where we're making sure all of us women feel supported and all of that. But your situation as a women's sports bar owner, right? And I mean, you said there's a handful of you across the United States. Are you guys all in a text chain? Like, is there
we are.
talk all
We
the
are
time?
all in a text chain. Yeah.
That makes me happy. That makes me happy.
Happy too.
We are.
So important.
We have a number of different ones, but there's a primary one for sure. And I think there's like 26 of us in it right now. And we talk about whatever, it's a huge cheerleading thing, we're there but those of us who are, I kind of consider some of us to be the aunties. I don't like grandmother yet, but I'll take auntie.
Auntie.
I'll take auntie.
Always. We're all
So,
aunties.
and we're there to like, help navigate interesting things. Right. And it's really fun to see how some of the newer concepts and ones that are opening, the things that they're running into are completely different than the stuff that I was up against, sort of the more challenging things that I had. Now they're running into different challenges. And so it's interesting to try to navigate those together. Yeah, it's a really great group of women.
So important to have that safe space of understanding,
100%.
right? Really understanding what your role is, what you're going through, what your challenges are, because I think that that's always been kind of a detriment to women in general, that we're not known for supporting each other. We're not known for giving up the info because we're so worried that we're going to lose our space. This coveted job we've got, I don't want to share any information how I got it because then you're going to take it, and I don't know if we've done that to each other. I don't know if it's innately in us or it was created, by
a male-dominated society,
who were like, "Oh, just
don't let them talk. They might
against
take over
each
the
other,
world."
right? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. I'm probably gonna get slammed for that one, but it's great to see the change. It's great to see and that's what we've been trying to push. Like, if you walk the walk, you got to talk the talk. Like, that's why we wanted to start doing this, like asking the questions about how you got to where you are. So those younger ones, my 17-year-old daughter can say, "Oh, I'm going to, go see how she got there. And maybe I'll reach out to her on LinkedIn and
totally
have a conversation." So I love that you have that. We're going to wrap it up. Our final one is always the same one, and our question, and it is the best piece of advice that you use often or that you've been given that stayed with you.
I get asked this question every once in a while, like some version of this question. And I think, I always come back to follow your gut instinct, because I think, it's so easy for women to exist with imposter syndrome or be questioned and then start to question oneself. When the truth of it is, we know exactly what we're talking about. We know exactly that we're right. When we know, we know. And we know extra hard because we get challenged so much more.
So much.
And so I just always say, like, if you if you know you're right and you know this is the thing that you want to do, or you know that's the right answer, don't just follow your gut instinct and stick to that. And I think I know that if I had not listened to myself, or my own instinct, that I wouldn't be here today. And so I think that, and then sort of the second part of that is there's a way to do all of that with kindness. And I think kind of going back to what you were saying about uplifting other women, and that is literally every day I get up and all that Rough and Tumble is doing is uplifting women. I mean, that is the primary focus. To get to equality, we have to uplift one another. And so there, kind of how do we remain kind within that is for sure. So it's a 2-part answer, made it a little longer, but
no, I love that.
I think they go together too. Yeah.
I get a little challenged on the kind part going through menopause. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? That's really hard to do today to be nice. I'll, do it. I'll support you, but not nicely because I'm having a hot flash.
Well, there's a difference between firm and knowing what you can and can't do.
True.
And doing something that is exclusionary or
yes.
Yeah.
I joke. And actually it's funny
that you say
that, listen to your gut. I will never forget. I don't consider myself religious at all, but
yeah, I don't
I'll never forget an Oprah show. I always watched Oprah growing up. She said one time, intuition is God's voice. In that feeling you have in your stomach.
Yeah.
You know in your stomach, right from wrong. If this is what, if you're doing something wrong, you feel it in your stomach, you feel a little bit sick, right? Or if you're excited about something because it's right, you feel it in your stomach. And she described it as God's voice. And I've never forgotten that, and for me, it's more like something bigger than me is telling me this is what you should be doing. If I'm looking for a sign, I'm very spiritual, but so what you're saying, I so resonate with that. I always go off my gut, and
it's that thing that tells you maybe you should break up with the person who's not right for you. Or
because you know it, you just don't want to believe it.
But sometimes you don't want to admit it either. But whoever, for me, it was my grandmother. My grandmother was
same.
She was I think about her as really more my mom in some ways. Like when I think about who I am, she's so at the core, and whatever that energy is the thing that just kind of, it's that in that same space. That's that thing you tune into when you're quiet and by yourself. So.
Very true. Oh my gosh.
Well, I know in my gut we are coming to see you, Jen, and we're
yes, you are.
We're going to all these other amazing women's sports bars and check it all out.
We need to do a little tour.
Yeah,
you should
get on that.
Yeah, you should. Well, and now I'm getting ready to open our second one. So Rough and Tumble.
My gosh, is that is that known, or do we break something?
It is public. No, sorry, it just got announced last week. Okay. I'm actually sorry.
No, we're happy for you. That's fantastic.
It's brand new, so it just got announced last week. And Rough and Tumble, I'll send you the press release. Rough and Tumble will be the first women's sports focused bar in the world to have 2 operating.
You're a chain.
I'm a chain.
You're a chain. It's like the Steel Magnolias when Dolly Parton says, "I'm a chain.
I'm a chain. I'm a chain." So now, when you come out here, you can come to both places.
My gosh, love it.
Yeah. Thank
Jen
you.
Barnes, founder, CEO of Rough and Tumble Pub. You got to go check it out. It's in Seattle. It's a first, and many have followed in her footsteps, and we can't wait to check it out ourselves. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for following your gut. Thank you for improving our lives and so many women who are affected from it. And those coming behind us, my daughter, like these are things now that she just thinks are there. It's the
normal, and that's exactly what we want.
And I want her to appreciate it, but I also love that it's getting to a place where, of course, we have this as we should. Yeah. And that's because of you. Thank you.
Well, and both of you. Thank you both. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Celeste. I can't wait to meet you here in person.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. You've been listening to Girl, How'd You Get That Gig with hosts Amy G and Celeste Gehring. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. The handle is @GirlGigPodcast. Followers and subscribers are automatically entered to win our giveaway prizes, announced every other Wednesday on our Instagram page. Until our next episode, go get that gig.